everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's always a pleasure spending time with you. Today I start a 3-part series on When God Says No. I'm going to share an experience with you today of hearing no from God. So there are 2 things in my life that I consider myself would have prayed the most for. One was when I was trying to get pregnant, and the other was when I was married and really wanted God to fix all the challenges that I was experiencing in our marriage. I got married at age 24, and when I got married, for me, I married for life. I grew up in a church that did not preach divorce and remarry. I did not want to be alone. And after giving birth to my daughter, I did not want to have to raise her on my own. I met my husband in church. It was his adoration to God that caught my attention. He was the person that will stand when the worship was being led, but the congregation was seated, close his eyes, lift his hand in the air and worship. And I thought to myself, that must be a man of God. And if he was capable of loving God, I thought that he would be capable of loving me. And 2, he was easy on the eyes. But almost immediately into the marriage began to have problems. My husband was very unfaithful. The marriage was laced with infidelity. It was as if even before I can get over one episode, I was faced with another. Before I can get back on my feet, I was knocked down by another of his infidelities. I remember praying and crying and praying and begging and beseeching God, quoting scriptures to God. God, I'm asking you in faith, believing. You promised to grant unto me the desire of my heart. You said, ask and it shall be given unto me. And I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. It seemed as though the more I prayed, the worse things got. I felt like I was in quicksand. The more I fought to get out, the deeper in sadness and misery I found myself. I was always of small frame, but the stress took a toll on me. I began to lose weight. I was always someone who denied myself of food when I was unhappy, so it affected my eating habits. It affected my ability to parent my daughter. I remember one day I would have gotten home. My daughter was quite small, toddler. I got home from work, released the nanny, took my daughter in my arms, sat in the living room, and the tears rolled down my cheeks. And I remember my daughter, who could hardly speak at the time, she took her finger and she said, "Mommy, cry, Mommy, cry." And it was then I decided that I could no longer live like this. I did not want my daughter to grow up always remembering her mother sad and unhappy, and me not being able to be the mother that God has called me to be. I remember when I walked away without shedding a tear. I felt like I had already cried all the tears I had. I walked away without holding any animosity towards my husband. But I walked away with shattered faith in God. I was frustrated. I was disappointed. I felt let down, and I told God how I felt. I said to him, "I cannot believe that you would do this to me. How can I stand and preach about having faith in God, asking in faith, believing, when I put my faith in you, when I entrusted you with my marriage and you allow it to fall apart?" I said to him, "I feel like a fraud." And I showed my tantrums. Almost immediately after the separation and subsequently divorce, I began putting the pieces of my life back together, setting goals and dreams and aspirations, and working towards seeing them accomplished, and investing in my relationship with my daughter. I never let go from God, even though I was disappointed, because He has always been the only one I knew. But as the years went by, I began to notice that changes were taking place in my life that I did not recognize. I was transforming into someone that I did not know. My confidence was high, my self-esteem was high. I walked with a pep in my step. I walked with my head held high. I felt a peace and a grace. And I would mutter, "I'm happy, I'm at peace." And people began walking up to me and saying, "Miss, there's something special about you. You have a certain essence, you have a certain air." Recently someone called it added grace. And then it took me a while to realize that what I was seeing in myself and what other persons were seeing, it was the result of God working on me instead of on the broken marriage that was cooked up with all the wrong ingredients and could not survive. He chose to work on me as an individual. arms I threw. And I thank Him for not giving to me the thing that I thought I needed and thought to hold on to so badly. Today, my experience, my testimony inspires and impacts and strengthens and motivates and encourage people all over the world. A few weeks ago, I exhorted on the topic when God says no, and I shared 2 personal experiences that I would have had hearing no from God. This was one of them. And before I left that venue, someone walked up to me and said that someone in another continent asked for my number and if it was okay to share. I said yes. I had no idea who the person was or why they needed my number. Later that day, I was contacted by a young woman who would have tuned in and heard my story. She was in tears when she called because she has been struggling and fighting to hold on to a marriage that she's convinced it is outside of the will of God. That she's convinced is already over, but she wants it. I am no way advocating for anyone to walk away from their marriage. But I knew that for my sanity, for my peace of mind, for my faith, I had to let go and let God. And today, even though I am still single, I am more whole than I was in a broken marriage. I want to encourage you that God's plans towards you are good plans. His thoughts towards you are good thoughts. Like a loving parent, He cares about your well-being. And even when He says no, it comes from a place of love. He's shielding you. He's protecting you from something or things that have the potential to be devastating in your life. He's preserving you for a more dissolving yes.